Welcome to the CareStack podcast channel. You're either joining us today for the audio portion of our program via Buzzsprout on Google Podcasts or Spotify, or potentially you're watching this on Vimeo. So we have a dual audience here. I'd like to welcome my guest, Dr. Rich Stevenson. And the title of our program today is Taking the Leap, Integrating New Software into both an Established Practice and a Teaching Facility. And so I'm really thrilled to have Dr. Stevenson here today. He's got an avid following of over 65,000 on his own YouTube channel. And he's a dedicated clinician in really delivering very rich content to wet finger dentists all over the world on restorative dentistry. So Dr. Stevenson, thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate having you as our guest.
Hi, Jim. It's a pleasure. It's good to be with you today.
So you really have a fascinating experience as a clinician, as a faculty member at UCLA School of Dentistry. And if that wasn't enough, you've also are the founder and principal of Stevenson Dental Solutions, which is an industry-leading institute for teaching restorative dentistry. I'd love for you to kind of share your experience and background with the audience today. Are you okay doing that?
Sure.
Great.
Well, I graduated from UCLA many years ago, 1986. And after private practice experience for 7 years, I started teaching part-time at UCLA in operative dentistry. And after a couple of years of doing that, they gave me an offer I couldn't refuse. And I sold my practice to my classmate, my business partner down there, and he bought it from me. And I made the move up to UCLA and started practicing in the faculty group practice right away and venturing into what academics was all about. I loved teaching. My dental assistant practice always said, Dr. Stevenson, you got to go into teaching. You're so great at explaining things to me. And I just feel like I really get it. So that was really the motivation. At UCLA, I was, a great student of the theories and the techniques of teaching. I studied how to be a better teacher. I looked for mentors to help guide me. I ultimately got a fellowship in medical education as a result of my pursuits into being a better teacher. And it paid off. I got recognized by the students many times as Teacher of the Year, which was a wonderful encouragement. One year I actually won the American Dental Association Golden Apple Award, which was quite a shock to me. So teaching has been my life, but not my entire life, because clinical dentistry is an enormous part of being a good teacher. I've always believed that if you cannot do the work, you really shouldn't be teaching the work. Okay. And so it's been a fundamental principle of mine. And that's really what is at the core of what my teaching center is all about. Even though I loved UCLA, it was time to move on after 26 years. And I opened the institute because I wanted to teach dentists the way I thought they weren't being taught currently in various CE programs across the country. I wanted my courses to be 90% hands-on. I wanted to provide information before the course started, and then really get right to the dentistry immediately. And it also involves a clinical component where I have an operatory at the center and we do demo cases there on real patients.
Great.
So it's just, this has been a wonderful transition, and I'm enjoying it because I get to teach the way I want.
That's the key, right? Having artistic license in that regard.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So from your perspective, you're teaching in academia, you're teaching in your own facility, and obviously you're working in a private practice. I think it's a very unique perspective that you have. You touch all three kind of constituencies out there. How does technology in those three worlds play a role in the day-to-day operations?
Well, even though I've been around a while, I have tried to stay young technologically and digitally savvy with all of the new advances, even social media. My students at UCLA used to say, gosh, Dr. Stevenson, you know more about this digital technology than we do. And we grew up on this. And so I've always had to stay, just one step ahead of the students. And that's a hard thing to do because
sure is, yeah.
The field is evolving dramatically and really fast. But I was actually a digital CAD/CAM user in 1988. So I was an early adopter of digital technology, an early adopter of digital x-rays. of milling, of getting involved with dental materials research, of all of that. And I think it's essential for the modern day practitioner to be well versed in all of the technologies that are available to us. So that's why at the center we have printer, we have milling machine, we have two different scanners, digital radiography, and really what I believe to be the best patient management software in our system.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So you mentioned how you have younger students who are always kind of pushing you to be up to speed with what's most current. I'm curious about what patients have come to expect. You're in you're in an area where technology is second nature to most people. And
Right.
so, what do patients expect from technology and the technology you employ? And also I'm curious, like now that you've reopened for several months since the lockdown in California, like how has that adapted to change with their expectations?
The last 6 to 8 or 9 months or so, the most dramatic change for dentists, other than internally increasing our PPE and our protocols in the operatory, which has been incredibly dramatic and impactful and difficult. The
Right.
other aspect is communication with patients, communicating in a way that goes beyond the telephone and the email, something that is a little bit more cutting edge. So I believe that utilizing all of the communication pathways we have available to us to keep our patients engaged in our practice, engaged in what we're up to, letting them know what we're doing in terms of COVID protection, things of that nature are essential. And I know a lot of practitioners out there have tried to update their websites, and they've reassured their patients that, hey, patients, this is what we're doing. It's going to be safe. Please continue to see us. Or maybe they've sent out a letter or an email to their patients in that respect. But I think that we can do better. I think we can do more than just announcing that. I think that we can actually engage the patients and keep them connected to the practice. Patients expect us to be on the cutting edge. It is no longer acceptable for a practice not to have this technology. There are practices that don't, and they're hanging in there, but I don't believe the modern practice, the practice of today and tomorrow, could survive without a very robust digital connection. And for that reason, it's been essential. My patients expect us to have a scanner. They would
Okay.
not consider engaging in Invisalign and have to take a conventional impression and send that in a package to Invisalign. They expect to have a scanner in the facility. They talk about scanners in other offices that they've been at, and they come to your office and you're using conventional impressions and no options for scanning. This is going to be a setback in the patient's mind. I think we need to be looking at how can we engage more digital technology in our practices. So, I mean, I think it's critical. Absolutely.
Yeah, patients are definitely more savvy now than when I started in dentistry in 2002. They weren't really informed as they are now, right? So that's
That's true.
nature
That
of
is
the
true.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, if we can shift gears here and speak specifically about technology modernization,
Mhm.
why did you personally make a decision to change from the legacy landscape of on-premise software? And I want to be careful. I don't want to use too many buzzwords and like geek speak. On-premise means a desktop software,
Right.
the closet full of like servers and wires and cables, right? And switch from your incumbent software for both for your practice and for the teaching institute as well.
Right. I mean, we had our choice of putting any software in the world at any price in the teaching center. That is my startup. My practice in West Los Angeles is a group practice that's been established for several decades, and I don't have as much control in that facility. But I did learn from that association, which I still am very happily engaged in, what I didn't want to do with the
Okay.
center. I learned the mistakes that have been made that arguably the finest dentists in the country and the smartest dentists have made because there just wasn't an option out there. So for me, it was really clear. I needed to go with the best. And I've always believed that about everything from scanners to dental materials to the time you take with a procedure to utilizing the most current techniques, the most scientifically based techniques. And so for me, it was a no-brainer when it came to deciding on what kind of patient management software I'd go to, because I simply wanted to go with the most progressive, most responsive, the most adaptable team of people that would be able to respond to the needs of a changing world and a changing practice environment. And so it was a no-brainer. And I guess, I'm, I'm a CareStack user. I mean, there's no, we don't have to beat around the bush here.
No,
That
right.
is in fact, that is in fact why I'm here today, I'm sure. But I want to talk to my friends out there in practice and just, I know how hard it is to be a dentist. I've been a dentist for 35 years. This is a tough job, but it's a
Right.
wonderful job. It's a great profession. And, we need all the help we can get, guys. I mean, we are working so darn hard all day long. We don't have time for nonsense like having to deal with reporting and engaging patients and worrying about that kind of stuff. We want it to be automated. We want our staff to contribute to this process. We want to be current. We want to be able to incorporate new fees. How about new questions in your patient exam forms? How about curbside check-in opportunities,
Sure.
teledentistry, things like that. So when I researched all the products out there, and I was blown away by how many there were. I mean, when I started in dentistry, there was one or two players in the market, and now I don't even know how many there are. You probably know better than me, Jim, how many software companies are out there. But it's mind-boggling, and there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I think that there's a lot of contradictory information, and I think that if a user of a dental office is looking to change software, that's a very scary thing. And it's a daunting sort of possibility. It kind of reminds me of, when a new material came along, in academics, we'd have to change our slides for the lectures.
Sure.
And it became incredibly hard because every single slide was now obsolete and we had to redo everything. So I know this is a kind of a scary thing. And, this is something we can discuss is, how that might look in a crossover type situation or transitional type thing. But for me, being able to start from scratch with the knowledge that I have, 35 years of experience, all of the things I've seen come and go, I just was at a tremendous advantage. And I was able to research this carefully, and I made the decision based on all measures that I could come up with, all the various metrics.
Yeah, thank you for being so thorough. I think the great thing in our industry is that a rising tide floats all boats. So we do have all these different software manufacturers, but it forces people like CareStack to continue to innovate, right? If we get, unfortunately, the landscape for so many years was really dominated by a couple of just monolithic companies.
Right.
And they weren't really, there was no kind of agitation in the market. And that's really changed, I think, in the last couple of years.
Oh, absolutely. I can remember working with one company and asking them how could they modify some aspects of their software to accommodate some of the questions that we wanted to ask patients, and they said, "We don't."
Okay.
But send us your ideas, and then we'll send them to our little consortium, and then maybe at the end of the year you'll see an update. Maybe you'll see that.
Okay.
That was it. That was honestly what was happening in those early days. And it was really frustrating that our hands were tied. And I think that's why a lot of dentists today are in a hybrid practice, in the sense that they still have paper charts.
Okay,
And
right.
they have their practice management software, but they also don't feel comfortable giving up on paper. And in our practice in San Dimas at our teaching center, we are 100% paperless. 100%.
Unbelievable.
It is
Yeah.
all digital. And guys, that is hard to do. I mean, it seems like there's always an insurance form or a set of radiographs or something you want to have in your hands. And yet we've made a decision to, restrict our practice to a paperless environment.
Yeah, thanks for going to depth on that. So as you mentioned, you're a CareStack user, and I'm sure no one's really super surprised being on our podcast.
Right.
I'm just curious, as the efficiencies at the practice, I know it's been a short amount of time here, but early on, by just taking away and displacing this incumbent type of setup that you're used to in your practice, and going to something like us that's cloud-based, that's all-in-one. What are some of the efficiencies you're able to achieve besides saving money? That's obviously one of them, but by kind of removing the need for having bolt-on softwares and different things that talk to each other.
oh, I can't stand that stuff. You know, these bolt-ons and widgets and what have you. It's a way to cope with a software package that is not able to adapt. And I understand why dentists do it. I mean, I think the fear is you don't want to change. The fear is that you've spent so much money, you understand a system, and it just seems easier to bolt things on. But then you have to understand you have to pay for all that stuff. And then the communication between all of these things is not always optimal. So for us, just having all in one place it was a no-brainer. And I absolutely love the power of what CareStack can do for us. I'm blown away, quite frankly. One of my biggest concerns was that I have a very extensive questionnaire for my patients, and for me to be able to go into the software and comfortably, easily place these questions in whatever sequence I wanted and phrase them however I wanted to, was just incredibly powerful. Not having to back up things at the end of the night. Oh my gosh, what a wonderful thing that is. Being able to to be connected to my practice no matter where I was.
Okay.
I mean, I can get on my laptop while I'm in Chicago at a meeting and I can see everything I could see if I was sitting right there in my operatory. I mean, that's mind-boggling. I mean, but that's what we're used to now. I mean, that is, I believe, what everyone in the current digital world would expect to find. But ironically, a lot of that doesn't exist in dental software. A lot of that is the room with servers, and
Right.
God forbid one of those things goes down, and then you have to deal with backups, and who's doing the backup for you, and all these things. It's all automated. So for that and many other reasons, I love this system. I have to tell you that my wife, who is the practice manager, is an IT expert. She's worked for big companies like Toyota, and she worked for Warren Buffett's subsidiaries and did a lot of IT and
Fascinating.
working and what have you. And she tells me that this is the finest interface she's ever worked with. It is absolutely incredibly powerful. And let's say it's not going to be as intuitive perhaps as a new iPhone, but once you get over a small but somewhat steep learning curve, the back office of CareStack is your best friend. And I think that that's what people have to understand is that, you know, if you're going to make the switch in terms of getting patients switched over, I know, Jim, from you, that that's a no-brainer. That's so easy to do. I think that's one of the things dentists worry about. Is like, oh my gosh, I'm worried about losing patient information, number one. And then number two, how is my staff going to be able to figure this thing out? And I can just tell you that the staff is not going to have any trouble with figuring it out. It takes a little bit of training, and you're good to go. And sorry, I'm going to keep talking. You know, I'm a professor. That's what we do. We love to talk. But I have to tell you that the training process has been just incredible. One of your trainers is your guide, maybe your lead trainer, is incredible. Her name's Danae. She is amazing. She's been a dental assistant, and she's well trained in other software, and she's really helped all of us, the accounting side, the management side, the dental assisting side, the operator side, the clinician side, and those are all different areas. And for me, I don't need to know it all. I just need to know my area.
Sure.
And as long as my people know their areas, and the IT expert, my wife, knows everything a little bit, then we're set. We don't feel like there's anything that we can't figure out. And if there's we hit a little hurdle that we're not able to get over, it's really simple to email and get an immediate response, which is amazing. I've not had that kind of experience with other interfaces. So.
Yeah, thank you for speaking to that. I appreciate it.
Uh,
I want to go off on a tangent for a moment because I really
Sure.
think and my apologies, I kind of failed to tackle this at the beginning, but I think what's fascinating for our viewers and listeners is this following you've built on YouTube. And for those of you that are out there, it's Stevenson Dental Solutions, very easy. You can subscribe to the channel. I'm subscribed. And Rich, it looks like you're putting out content kind of on a weekly basis.
Right.
And it's professionally recorded. It's not, someone going in there with a camera from 20 feet away to look at a restoration, clinically oriented. For example, the one you posted last week, already has 6,500 views.
Right.
So I'd love for you to speak a little bit about that journey,
Sure.
that you've taken on YouTube to kind of raise the collective ability of restorative dentistry. What's that look like, and what the engagement's like with your subscribers, if you don't mind?
Not at all. It started by, well, I made a video at UCLA. One of the faculty members made a video and he edited it and he posted it on YouTube. And then a lot of my students were watching the video saying, gosh, Dr. Stevenson, you should have your own channel. And so I started posting a few videos that I was making. And then I found out really quickly that I needed to upgrade my video equipment and I needed to learn a little bit about how to do it better. And I started to do that. And then I found that a following quickly started to grow. And I started off with very few followers. And then quickly, within about 6 months, we were about 5,000. And about a year later, we were over 50,000. And now we're getting about 150 new subscribers every day.
Amazing.
And I think the bottom line is this: it's very practical. It's delivered from somebody who's been in the trenches for 3.5 decades, that was a faculty member at UCLA, I was a clinical director. I was the chairman of restorative there. And for me to be able to share my knowledge and my mistakes and my insights has just been an incredible experience for me. I do it because I love it. And then for me to get the responses back that they found it helpful. I get students from all over the world expressing gratitude for how my videos have helped them pass their exams or pass their boards. Young dentists particularly are incredibly thankful that someone showed them how to do something that was difficult or questionable. Their knowledge wasn't quite as filled in as it could be when they left dental school. That has been just incredible feedback. And so it keeps me going. And I really enjoy, by the way, I respond to every single comment on my channel. Not one does not get a response. So it takes a little bit of time.
Sure.
But I try to answer thoughtfully. Not everybody likes every video. I've had people challenge me, and that's okay too. I mean, you're not going to be 100% liked by everybody, but the point is that it's out there, and it's a resource for dentists, dental students, and even guys that have a lot of experience will come and look at the videos and find them to be really helpful to sort of reinvent themselves perhaps in an area that they weren't doing as much or maybe had some questions about. It had nothing to do with COVID. This was done before COVID, and this was done when dentists were free to go to their practices. But I think that dental education needed something like this. And I think that, to see is to know. And when you see it and you see it being performed live and you see the results and the results look favorable, it's really encouraging because you're thinking, hey, I can do that. Dr. Stevenson did it. I can do that.
So true.
That's kind of what's happening. And I love it. I mean, if you can teach somebody to be better than you have become successful as a teacher. And I have several of my students that are amazing clinicians, and they continue to stay engaged in my YouTube channel. And now I'm at the point where I want to hire some of them to be faculty at my institute. So it's just been an incredible journey, and it's really an enjoyable experience.
Well, thank you for doing it. I mean, it makes dentistry accessible, right? Into
It does, yeah.
corners of the world where maybe it raises everyone's collective ability by giving them access at no charge to this information. I know personally, whenever I want to fix something around the house and I don't know what I'm doing, the first place I go is YouTube.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Me too. Yeah, I have a huge following in Egypt, in India, in Europe, collectively in Europe, Turkey. I think only 35% of my viewer base is United States. So 65% of the viewers are coming from Canada, UK, Europe, Egypt, all over India, Pakistan, China.
Amazing.
It's just really cool. So for me, that's just a wonderful, rewarding process to be part of.
Sure. I want to veer off script if that's okay. You talked about the institute and the facility. How do people learn more about that? What's kind of the mission? And then obviously the obvious question is like, what's changed now that in-person learning is a little bit different, than it was 18 months ago?
You mean before COVID or
Yes.
yeah?
I try to stop talking, saying the word if I
Okay,
can.
very good. Very good. So to back up, your first question was about how this teaching is different, what makes it unique, and what
Right.
we have to offer. Well, we only take 20 students maximum, or 20 dentists maximum. We are ADA certified, so everybody gets ADA CERP credit, which is incredible. Most continuing education centers that are small like mine haven't been able to accomplish that. It's been a major undertaking. So that's one thing we do that's awesome. So our international dentists can get credit for the work they do because CERP is approved in their countries. We are all about hands-on. You know, too many courses are watching. And
Sure.
so when you can get into a chair and pick up the work and perform the work and have it photographed and reviewed in front of others, it's painful and maybe a little scary at first, but the way we do it is very encouraging. And we can even, if people want to be anonymous, we keep their case anonymous, but we can critique them in front of others. That is a study club mentality. That is what it's all about when it comes to learning fast. We don't learn fast when we watch things and try things. It's this huge extended period of trial and error and frustration and abandonment of techniques because you don't see the subtleties. You don't
Okay.
really have someone there watching you do the work. So all of our data in terms of our teaching materials is provided to the students before the course and during the course. Every single video we take during the course of me doing demonstrations is uploaded to a specific folder for that course participant. They can have this download at their leisure at some other time. Every photograph we take, every sample that I show, everything that's unique in the course is provided for them throughout the lifetime of whenever they want to view it. So, I mean, that is
Great.
particularly unique. I share all my material. I share everything, all my videos, all my slides, anything I take a photograph. I do a lot of sketching on an iPad program. And this is a very special situation.
Yeah, you're really differentiated in that regard. That's right.
It is, you know,
Yeah.
when dentists leave, they keep coming back because they're like, there's nothing like this. There's just nothing that really mimics this kind of situation. You know, if you go to a course, a 3-day course, and it says hands-on, typically what happens is you spend the first 6 hours in the classroom and then you do maybe 2.5 hours in the lab.
Right.
And that's usually considered a hands-on day. In our course, we say, good morning, how you all doing? 8 o'clock. By 9 o'clock, they're working with the handpiece, they're working with models, and we don't stop. That's how we roll. And yeah, it just makes it a lot of fun. I mean, dentists like to do stuff, and we get really bored when we have to listen to lectures or maybe long podcasts too. So I got to be careful about that. But I mean, I think that's and particularly now, don't you think that the dentists are getting kind of flustered and frustrated because they're not able to go to courses?
That's
Now,
right.
our centers had to adapt. We have minimized the number of participants and we spread people out. We have box lunches that they can eat in different locations throughout the center. Our center is pretty big. We've got about 3,000 square feet, so people can move about and find areas to stay safe. And we're following all the protocols we do in private practice. So we've been able to weather the storm of 2020, but it hasn't been easy. And so we're looking forward to going back to something kind of normal, maybe halfway through this year.
Fingers crossed, we're on that trajectory, right? And Stevenson Dental Solutions, you know, if you just Google that or use that as the URL, that's where people can find more information on your courses, what's upcoming.
You got it. And, you know, we've got a large, listing, offering of different courses for different types of things, from diagnosis, occlusion, and then learning the little intricate things like anterior ceramics and anterior composite restorations, posterior ceramics, posterior composite restorations. And then also we include photography in our courses, implant restorations in our courses, and we're going to be expanding into surgical courses in endodontics and in implantology. So a lot of cool things are happening in the near future.
Oh, well put. Thank you for kind of going into that detail. There's kind of just one last question I want to ask you. And you kind of piqued my curiosity earlier when you said early on with technology, you weren't really getting the response from companies. It would be, hey, wait a second, maybe you'll get it in a year. We're not really sure. It goes into some black box or black hole somewhere, and you
Right.
hope it comes out the other side. I know that our leadership is going to be watching this podcast or listening to this podcast or watching the video. And I know you're just a couple months in, but I'm sure
Right.
you have a wish list. And the way CareStack gets better is from our clients. Frankly, that's how we've evolved the product from when it went live 3.5 years ago to where it is today. And so I just want to ask you and put it out there, nothing is off limits. What areas are you hoping that CareStack could be enhanced in the future, that you think is an opportunity for us to improve?
Wow, that's great. Very interesting. I'm not sure if we can do this yet, but maybe small video files could be attached to the accounts because it may be good to interview patients on video and have those attached to accounts for medical legal reasons. Some of the odonogram charting is a little fiddly right now, but I've been listening to Danae tell me that this is on the list of things to take care of because there are just so many options, and sometimes it's important to kind of close things down to the procedures that you commonly do,
Sure.
and yet let the chart be robust in its ability to record things nicely. For example, existing conditions. Right now, we're working on maybe existing fixed partial denture, existing bridge, and there are a couple of ways to make that show up on the screen, but they're a little bit different looking depending on whether you choose one mode or another mode. So I'd like to see that more consistent. And I mentioned that to Danae, and she said, absolutely, doctor, that's coming already. This is something we're working on. And, so even when I'm getting picky and really kind of looking at the minute little details, it wasn't just blown off. It was like, no problem. We're doing it. We're doing it. And in fact, that's something that I'm hearing from the guys that are working on it, that this is a project of ours. Another thing that for me would be really great is because, we have all these macros for all of our different procedures, which is, trust, I am so strange in this respect, but I absolutely loved creating those from the back end. I love writing my notes and having all the options of what you could fill in in terms of materials and liners and anesthetic and things like that. I just found that to be just so enjoyable and powerful because now it's my chart, it's not like somebody else's words. These are my words. And that part was really cool. However, when you're doing a complex thing, like let's say you're doing almost like a full rehabilitation on a patient, and in that procedure, you're maybe putting in 3 posts and you're doing a couple of buildups, and then you're doing some crowns are going to be ceramic and some crowns are going to be partial coverage or veneers, or maybe you're doing even some onlays out of gold or something in one patient. It becomes a little bit more difficult to write a doctor care note when you have a lot of different information out there.
Okay.
So what I would love to see in the future is some kind of a menu that could pop down that would say, is this appointment a multiple procedure appointment? And we will inject notes from those existing templates for those specific procedures and put them all into one. I would imagine that would be a major software writing code challenge, because I don't know how it could be done exactly, but I know your guys, if it can be done, you'll be the ones to figure that out. So
I'll make sure. Sorry, go ahead, please.
Yeah, those are really it, because I can tell you that all the other stuff, when it comes to communicating with patients and letting them know about their appointments, allowing them to pay, they can pay by their phone. They get reminders and any birthday, and I love doing the post-op instructions. That is amazing. You enter a note and it triggers a post-op instruction, so you are covered, and your patients have this beautiful post-op note, that post-op instruction that you wrote, that is attached to that procedure, and that already gets sent out to people. So there's just so many good things. I have to really look to find the little minutia that I think can be improved. But
no, that's okay. And I'm make sure Jay, who's our leader of product development, Jay, I know you're watching this, so we'll make sure he gets this material destined for him.
Who does, Jim, who does this? I mean, come on. I mean, you can't get on the phone with any other software company and actually feel like they're listening to you and they're going to make changes. I mean, this just doesn't happen. So, I mean, I think from a price point, that was an important factor, but it would not have deterred me from going with you, even if you were the most expensive, and which you're not, by the way. But even if you were, we would have gone with you anyway. But the point that you can have everything done in one interface and not have to have these, what do you call them?
Bolt-ons.
Bolt-ons, is very powerful. Is very powerful, and it should be reassuring to people. Reassuring for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for being our guest today. This is such a comprehensive
Pleasure.
program. I look forward to meeting in person in California sooner than later. So Dr. Rich Stevenson, please look up his YouTube channel. I think the easiest way to search it, Rich, is under Stevenson Dental Solutions.
Correct. Yeah.
And you can subscribe there. And then also his facility, his teaching facility. Is it stevensondentalsolutions.com? I want to make sure you hit the URL right.
You got it correctly.
That's the best way to contact you and learn more about what you're doing. Thank you for being our guest. Thank you for all our viewers and listeners out there for tuning in today. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Thanks, Jim. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.